so we're good.
Hey, welcome to your itinerary. My name is Rob Knight, and my guest today is my buddy Rick Gerrity. Rick is a published professional photographer who's been on the job for over 30 years. And Rick specializes in all types of photography, but I usually refer to him as a road photographer. He's a member of the LUMIX Luminary team and a good friend of mine. So welcome, Rick, and thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm great, man. I think it's hilarious that you are actually in your truck to do this interview. That's so awesome, man. It's so apropos.
Hey, man. I'm getting geared up. I'm about to take another road trip to Vegas, and then from Vegas, of course, and meet you in Portland. So
Not even
I'm just,
surprised.
yeah,
Cool.
should be fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. I mentioned in the introduction that I call Rick a road photographer, and that's different than a street photographer. I don't mean that he hangs out and shoots people on the street. Rick drives more than anybody I know, and I don't know anybody else who would rather drive from New Jersey to Vegas than fly. So, Rick, why do you prefer driving to flying or anything else?
You know, a while ago, I decided I would take a trip and just photograph my way across the country when I was going out to Vegas to the CE show, and it's like crack. I mean, I got hooked on it, and I just started driving and driving everywhere, and now I've got my truck will actually turn 300,000 miles on this trip, and yeah, I just love it. I love it because I can get great content, and I can try out new equipment, and I can carry anything I want because I'm not restricted to, the airlines and what I can take with me. So I'm pretty much okay, and I can do things like this from anywhere. It's awesome.
And I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. Your setup, but so your truck it's going to turn 300,000 miles, and the crazy part about that is it's 2012, right?
Yeah, no, 2007. 2007, yeah.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So driving is obviously a form of travel that offers more interesting photo ops than flying in general. Which came first, man? Your time behind the wheel or your road photography style? Did you want to make a particular type of photograph and you thought, well, I'm going to need to drive across the country to get those kind of pictures, or did your style develop? I know you have a commercial photography background, so did you just sort of hit the road and ended up developing your sort of street portraits and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked to walk around different cities and photograph things. But traveling across the U.S. has always intrigued me because there's so many different types of people that you meet, and it seems like everybody that I meet always has some type of a story behind the photographs I take, and it becomes really interesting, and I found myself like talking to everyone that I meet. Somebody that's interesting looking, tell them that they're interesting looking, and it winds up, I have coffee with them and hang out and get a great shot, and next time I travel across country, I'm liable to bump into them again, and it's pretty cool, man. I really like it. So I sort of developed that as I was driving, just stopping and bumping into different types of people. Anybody from truck drivers, American Indians, bikers, you name it. I've come in contact with them all, and it's fun, man. I really like it.
Yeah, and I think you and I share a sort of like we're not afraid of bikers and tattooed people and sort of more interesting looking characters. I think some people are maybe intimidated by that. What advice would you give people that you see a guy and you think, wow, that guy looks really crazy, I'd want to make his picture? How do you approach somebody like that?
Yeah, normally, I just kind of evaluate, the way they look and see, the type of actions. I mean, there are some people that you may not want to approach. You can kind of generally look at someone, and if they're talking to themselves and they're not on a cell phone, you might want to shy away from that. But in general, I mean, all the people that I've seen, it seems like the gruffer individuals are more apt to carry on a pretty decent conversation with showing them respect and talking to them about their lives and why you find them interesting. And they usually open up and have great stories.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip, man. If you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, can I make your picture? That's a whole different thing than if you say, hey, man, I think this is interesting about you. I think, you look cool, or your motorcycle's cool, or you're wearing something interesting, and actually start a conversation instead of just jumping right into, hey, I want to make your picture, and then take off. I think that's
No,
really cool.
I agree 100%. I mean, I think, if someone walked right up to me and said, hey, can I take your picture? The first thing I would do would be to be a little apprehensive. But if they say, hey, I want to, hey, I really think that, you're from this area. Obviously, you look like, you're a miner or a biker or a trucker or something, and you must have a story. What do you do? What kind of cool things do you do? And man, people are always willing to share stuff with you. They're proud of where they are. They're proud of what they do. Bikers, man, especially. I mean, the guys love their motorcycles, so they're all about telling you what year it is and what they did to it and all kinds of stuff. Next thing you know, you got this big, gruff-looking guy. It's just kind of like a big kid. He's just having a blast talking to you, and you're enjoying it as well. So, and then you make a great photo because now you're relaxed and it's not just jumping right up in their face.
Right, right, absolutely. And if you're on a plane, that's not necessarily going to happen. You might meet people at the airport, or there's people who do some interesting street photography in that context, but you're not going to have the opportunity to come in contact with so many different people and different types of people. And I've seen it on our workshops. You look around and Rick's gone, and he's got two guys outside, and he's basically setting up a little street portrait, and he's posing them by good window light and things like that. And our clients kind of trip out. It's people they wouldn't even have thought to speak to. Like, oh, I figured that guy would be really mean, but Rick knows the guy, and now he's going to have dinner with at his family's house or something. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. It's funny how that does work, but it is really a respect thing. I mean, you walk up to someone and you're interested in their lives and not just making a photograph. It makes a difference to them, I think, and then they're more apt to be a little more cooperative.
Absolutely, and it's that just reminds me. I was just reading about that Humans of New York project and kind of where that is now, and it's basically pictures of strangers, but it's pictures of strangers with their stories attached, and I think the story is what makes it interesting. And like you said, people are more apt to be into being photographed if they think you're interested in them, and not just adding a picture to your portfolio or something.
No, I agree 100%. Yeah, letting them tell you about their lives is the whole trick. I mean, people love to do that. It's pretty cool, and you get a great story out of it too. So if you're describing the image that you made, you've got just a great story to go with it instead of just I met this guy, I took his picture, and that was that. So I like to make photographs and have stories with them. It's a much more interesting thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what advice can you give people that are taking a road trip? The places that you go and photograph and the people that you meet are way off the beaten path sometimes. How do you find these really interesting spots like Chloride, Arizona, for example?
Well, chloride, yeah. I mean, I like to try to look. I may go look, on the internet to find towns that have a very small population that are, below 1,000 people, and try and locate those towns on my way, and then just drive in and check it out, and usually find a little local restaurant or something to have breakfast in, and go in and talk to the owner or even the waitress and just say, where I'm from and what I'm doing, and what happened in Chloride is a couple of the locals overheard me talking, and they're all about the fact that I'm from New Jersey, and they're just like, wow, these guys from New Jersey, and in Chloride, Arizona, like, what'd you do, make a wrong turn? And then they get in on the conversation, and then right away I just kind of jump on them and say, you guys live in Chloride, Arizona, there's 200 and something people here, you guys have to have great stories. And then it all just rolls, man. It's awesome. It's just, and every little town, Groom, Texas, same thing, 800 people. Went into a little place there and, told people what I was doing, and they were just all about it. So, tell you about their little town. It's pretty cool. So, research it a little bit before you go. And if you have to go out of the way a little bit, it's definitely worth it. I mean, look at Chloride. Those people in Chloride, I'll go back again and see them this time when I travel. I'll drop in and I'll have breakfast there one morning, and I'll hang out and chat with them, and it'd be great. Maybe we'll go back on another workshop.
Yeah, and that's a great tip. Find the local watering hole, because that's the one place that everybody's going to be. It's not as if in some little tiny town where, as you said, they have 200 people there. They don't have a lot of choices for going to breakfast. They're going to be at the one place for breakfast. So go at mealtime to where people share a meal, and that's where you're going to meet the people. If you just go at 11:30 in the morning between breakfast and lunch or whatever, you're not necessarily going to run into anybody that interesting.
No, for sure. And you definitely want to meet the people that are, rolling in there for breakfast in the morning or going in for lunch. Breakfast I find to be really interesting because they're just, it's first thing in the morning and everybody's just kind of hanging out and relaxing over a cup of coffee. And I just find it to be, it's real interesting. I mean, Chloride was my first really interesting place because it was a bit Twilight Zone-ish, when I first went in. And then after that, it's just like, now they're just like my buddies, they text message me, are you coming back? What's going on? It's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a great time there, man. I was a little dubious, not because I was afraid to go to this little town. I just didn't really imagine there would be that much to shoot, but it was a really really interesting place, and the people, as you said, they really made the difference in showing us a really interesting, good time there.
Yeah, I find that it's fun, and the more I travel, the more I enjoy stuff like that. The place I went to, Hugo, Oklahoma, where all the circuses winter.
Yeah.
I mean, I just happened to look that up, and I decided I would go there. And when I went in, I had made contact with him via email, and I wound up having the mayor drive me around for 4 hours and show me everything there was in town, including meeting one of the only living Marlboro men. I mean, you can't beat that. That was just a blast.
Right.
Really.
And that's not something you see if you stay on the interstate and
oh yeah,
stop for gas.
absolutely. I mean, I had to drive down the Cherokee Highway and go into Hugo and went in there, and it was great. I mean, I had a blast, and having the mayor drive me around, I was like the greatest tour guide ever. He knew everybody and introduced me to everyone, and including the elephant handler on one of the big circuses, and it was very cool, hanging out with the elephants, and yeah, it was really, really interesting, man.
That sounds awesome. Well, tell me about your setup when you're on the road. I know there's things that you always have with you in the car. You're not a guy that's going to stop at every truck stop just to eat and that kind of stuff. I know you like to be on the road. So, what do you consider essential equipment for the prepared road trip?
Well, along with spare everything, so mechanically, I mean, my truck is in real good shape. It runs real well, but I have spare parts, belts and hoses and things like that, and a jumper battery and tire repair kits and compressors, and because I do go out into the desert by myself, and I don't know where I'm going to wind up, so if I actually have a problem, I can pretty much get myself going. I do carry, some fire logs, different stuff like that in case I needed to make a fire or do something, and I do have food and water and all that stuff with me. I do stop, when I get gas, I'll get a cup of coffee or whatever, but I do have supplies with me, so if I disappear out into the Mojave or whatever, I can pretty much be on my own and not really worry about having to stop for water or food or anything else. I always have all that stuff with me, but that's the nice thing about driving too, is I can have all that gear with me and then just stop and make myself a sandwich someplace in the middle of God knows where and just be sitting out on the back of my truck and having a blast and making photos and doing whatever, and not be struggling looking for some place to grab something to eat or sleep. I also I have a full bed in the back of my truck, so I just will get tired, park, and climb in the back, and it's like being at home. I got a down comforter and a down mattress, and I'm warm as can be, and I'm good to go.
Nice. Yeah, you don't really have to have a big fancy RV just to camp out for a night here and there, and like you said, just make your own food on the road. That saves a ton of money too.
Oh yeah, it's a ton of money. Plus, you know what you're eating. I mean, I have gotten food poisoning a couple of times on trips, and that has not been fun. So I kind of shy away from eating anything weird, even in a good place. I mean, I had a good burger in a good restaurant and wound up really ill. And since that point, I was like, wow, I'm not going to deal with that anymore. I'll just kind of stick with what I know.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people tell me, I try to eat right, but you can't really eat right on the road. And making your own food is definitely one way that you can go about that. I think there's a lot of ways that you can eat more healthy on the road. From my experience, except in Socorro, New Mexico, which is they only have hamburgers and green chilies. But other than that, you can normally find something good to eat somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I do like having my own stuff because then I can I feel better that I'm not just loading up on junk or grabbing, a pack of Twinkies here and there, and I have decent food with me that I can make. I mean, if I get really intense, I'll bring a little portable stove with me and I'll cook some stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's probably
normally it's
more of a planning kind of a like you're going to camp out sort of a thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't normally take a stove with me unless I plan on being out in the desert for a while where I'm going to actually make myself something to eat, where I want to heat something up or whatever, and I can do that. But other than
Sure.
that, I just have a big cooler with tons of stuff in it and lots of drinks and then lots of ice. So works out
Right.
well.
What's the average length of a road trip? Like, for example, you're going to Vegas from New Jersey. How long does that take?
Well, Vegas, from New Jersey to Vegas, I'll probably do in a little less than 3 days. Um, Normally, well, going out there this time, I'm going to leave myself enough time where I can do all my stops and do whatever I want, and just, if I want to stop and see my buddy Jay Redfeather and Williams, I'll do that, and I'll give myself some time. But like on my way back from Vegas to Portland, Maine, I'll be pretty much not stopping. I'll be standing on it because I think it's 2,800 miles, so I have to make that in 2.5 days. So I'll give the old Nissan a run for its money at that point.
Yeah.
But normally 3 days to go cross country is a normal time for me. I do drive a ridiculous amount of time during the day. I wouldn't put anyone else through that because I'll get tired, take a nap, wake up, and just drive another 500 miles and not think anything of it. Where if I had someone with me, they would probably want to strangle me in my sleep
Yeah.
because it would be a long time to be sitting in the passenger seat.
Right. And it makes a big difference with the trips that you take. Like you said, you're leaving yourself plenty of time to stop where you want to stop, and I tend to book myself a little too. I book my trips a little too short. So I might see something that I might like to stop at, but I think, and I'll just keep on going.
Yeah.
But I think that makes a big difference when you're looking to make those awesome pictures on the road, that you actually leave yourself time to stop and do that. Do you see some, beautiful light, or you see an interesting thing, or a place that you want to stop, and you have, it's not like you're not going to miss the boat if you, stop for an hour and shoot for a while.
Yeah, I agree. I like to have that much time because there's a lot of times where you'll see something and you've got to go up an exit, make a U-turn, come back. You get there for a little while and you kill, before you know, you kill a half hour, an hour, especially if you meet someone. If you meet someone and they, want to talk, you have a conversation and you don't want to cut them short because the more you talk to them, the more interesting it seems to get, and the better the photo is that you make because they're just relaxed and hanging out and, they're not you're not strangers anymore. That's the funny part, you're kind of you're warmed up, everybody's relaxed, and you're just talking about them talking about what you do and the road trip, and everybody's they think the road trip thing's crazy when I tell them how many miles I have. And I've met the tractor trailer drivers that say, man, I don't have that many miles on my truck, where do you go? I was like, I've only got 100,000 miles on my truck and it's that old. It's like, where are you driving to?
You tell them
But
everywhere, right?
yeah. I mean, it really is. It's just fun wherever I can.
Yeah. Well, do you tend to pack the car as full as you can go because you're gonna you have plenty of room for it? I know when we went shooting in Arizona last summer, we looked. I was laughing when I got to the airport because it looked like you were going to move in. You had all these bags and for like a 3 or 4 day trip. So it's a big difference when you're used to packing for an airplane and when you're used to packing for the truck. Do you find that you just bring more stuff than you need sometimes?
In the truck, yeah, definitely. I'll throw in reflectors that I probably wouldn't bring and things like that, just because I can have them, and obviously any lenses that I have that I would normally like maybe leave home, and this way I can just kind of have everything, and also gives me the opportunity to play around with that stuff too. So it's like, hey, you know what? I happen to have the 25 millimeter 1.4. I'm going to just put it on and use it for a while, rather than just having 3 lenses that I took with me. Instead, I'd take the whole gamut. I'll bring everything from the fisheye all the way up to the, the 1 to 300 millimeter. So I may
Right.
as well have it all if I can. Just for equipment-wise, yeah, it's a blast. I mean, I'll throw I'll bring a couple little LED panels and stuff like that, just in case I want to play around for something. You never know. I mean, whatever pops up, if I have the opportunity, I may as well have it with me. Doesn't
Right.
take doesn't take up a lot of space, and a lot of times it just stays in the truck when I go out. Like I'm in Vegas, I'll go out and do the job, and then I'll bring in what I need. But then once I'm on the road, I'll probably use more stuff, uh, reflector wise and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
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 I'm kind of the opposite. I usually fly where I'm going, and so I'm trying to, weigh out. Well, I'm probably not going to shoot with this lens. I'll probably leave that at home, and um, it's one of the advantages of going to the same places over and over again. Like when I visit Costa Rica, I can pretty much pare it down to about 3 or 4 lenses that I'm going to take because I know kind of what the subjects are going to be and what my distance to them are going to be, and I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to want to shoot. But but the idea of just throwing every lens that you have in the bag and taking it is sounds like a lot of fun too.
yeah. I mean, agreed. It's like if you're going to a place like Costa Rica, you definitely know what you need to bring. As far as I'm concerned, I never know what I'm going to do. There might be a shot that I want to throw the fisheye on, or the 7 to 14, and I'll be like, man, I didn't bring that with me. If I flew, it'd be like, that stinks, and I really wish I had that lens. And this way I just can, stick it on there and give it a go.
Nice.
Camera body wise too, throw all the bodies in there and put them all in the bag and have a little bit of everything and just play around with it. I got a power strip in my truck that I just plug all the chargers into and just charge them while I drive, making sure I've got everything going. So it's kind of
Nice.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of luxuries in basically driving your own little headquarters with you.
Yeah, it's fun because I've got the Wi-Fi and I've got all that stuff, so I can just do this kind of thing as long as I get a signal somewhere. I mean, I can go live wherever I am, and it's pretty neat. Being able to Wi-Fi images from my camera to my phone and then put them up on the computer and maybe snapseed them a little bit on my iPad and then put them up onto social media, and it's just fun, man. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What's your setup on the road? Because you're constantly posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram, and I mean, heck, you're doing a Google Plus Hangout from your car, from the truck. So, what sort of equipment are you using, and what's your basic workflow while you're out on the road?
Well, basically, I have my laptop with me. I've got an iPad mini with me. Of course, got my iPhone with me. I do have an inverter in my truck so that I can plug things in and run like my laptop and things like that, charge them up, and also I've got the Wi-Fi hotspot from Verizon, 4G, that I can run with, pretty much wherever I am. And if I want to run my computer like I am now, I can go on the computer or the iPad and just use that, and it works well, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of be wherever and still be in touch with everybody and still be able to post pictures, onto Instagram and then throw them on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and where else, and do a video if I want. I mean, I've done some videos right out in the Mojave and just, transferred them up and stuck them on Instagram, or anything like that. Doing flixels, for example, just playing around out there, and then do a flixel out in the desert with some sneakers hanging off of a fence, and one of them's twisting, and I can just do that on my phone real quick or on my iPad, and then just pop it up online, and everybody gets a kick out of it. They just kind of feel like they're sort of following me on the trip, and kind of feel like they're there. So it's fun.
Sure.
Being in touch is important, man. It really is.
Absolutely. And so you're using the Wi-Fi in the camera for that?
The Wi-Fi and the camera I'll use for the transferring them over onto my iPad, and then from there I'll use I may use the phone if I have a signal to post it up on Instagram or wherever. But if for some reason I don't want to use the phone, I'll just use the iPad or my computer, and use my 4G, or my 4G, 4G
Yeah, the
to
hotspot. That's
the
pretty cool, man.
hotspot.
I
Yeah.
gotta get one of those. Either that or just always ride with you and then use yours.
Well, there you go. Yeah, yeah. I always have an empty seat in the front. Well, sort of.
Except for the cooler and the
The cooler and the snack bag, and all that kind of stuff. And, yeah, I also have a CB radio that I put in the truck just to sometimes when it's boring and there's nothing going on. I mean, if you really want to be uh, enlightened to what's going on in the trucker world, is you turn on the CB and start listening to a conversation of those guys, and it's pretty interesting. It's kind of fun.
nice. I remember doing
So
that when I was a kid. When we would go on road trips, my stepmom would get the CB out of her dad's car and put it in the minivan, and I remember, everybody's supposed to be sleeping overnight, but I'd always stay awake and listen to the truckers running their
Yeah,
errands.
because sometimes it's pretty interesting, and then also if you happen to get stuck in traffic, those guys absolutely know the best places to detour.
Hmm.
Better than any GPS system or anything else. They just know where to go, and they know good places to eat, and they know all kinds of stuff. So if you're in a pinch and you want to stop somewhere, they'll tell you, oh, don't stop at that truck stop. That one's got lousy food. Stop at this one. That's got better food. So that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't get any more real time than that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and these guys do that all the time, so they know the best places to eat. So
Very
pretty
cool.
cool.
All right, well, we're getting to the end of the episode, so I'm going to hit you with the usual 5 questions. So, what is your go-to photo gear setup?
All right. Well, right now, I mean, I'm pretty much hooked on the GH4. The GH4 is really kind of my favorite camera to use, and right next to that, now I'm saying that LX100 is pretty sweet. I mean, I throw that on the seat of my truck and leave it there, and when I'm, it's got a fast enough lens, it's got the zoom that's just perfect, so 75 reaches out pretty far. It's still fast, and I can grab shots, at night and stuff in different truck stops. But usually the GH4, the GX7 I like. I still like that a lot for some of my street stuff. Just walking camera, it's nice and small. Um, but I would say that the GH4 and the LX100 is probably my go-to gear, and that 42.5 millimeter Leica Nakatron lens is one smoking lens for doing any kind of portraits that I like, any of my headshots or anything like that. And I like to make square portraits, so those are that's just fun. Square verticals I prefer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Rick is the pioneer of shooting square vertical photography. Okay, how has that
Yeah.
setup changed in the last year? Obviously, the GH4 is a newer camera, but has your setup changed at all in the last year?
Um, I started when I was using a GH3 pretty heavy, and when the GH4 came out, I really jumped on that, and I just that probably is my favorite, and that has changed things. I mean, well, you were at when you were at Unique Photo doing you saw some of the 35-inch square photos that were posted on the back wall. I mean, that camera does a remarkable job, and that's a JPEG shot right out of the camera, and they just blew it up, and it looks ridiculously good. So
Yeah.
for all those people that are concerned, saying they make photographs and they like to print pictures, I mean, man, there's no limit to what you can do with the GH4 is a smoking camera. That thing's great. It
Yeah.
does a beautiful job. You can make prints, and then anybody that thinks you can't is just misinformed.
Yep. Well, what do you do on the road to make well, in your case, your truck or your hotel room feel like a home away from home?
Well, I try to have everything at my fingertips. I mean, I have stuff on my front seat, so I'll have a camera right there, so I can just grab stuff if something comes up. Try to be prepared for everything. Usually I have, my little drink cooler and everything right in the front, and I can just grab a drink and keep driving, and I've got pretty much everything right there. The phone's plugged in, the GPS is plugged in. I got a little bit of everything going on there. I've got my iPad set up, so in case I want to get on something there, I can look something up real quick, and I have a map that I can go to that's a good size, so I don't have to be putzing around with my phone. Not everybody has a big phone like you do. Where you
That's true. Well, really, in your
yeah.
case, it would be more like when you're at home, what do you do on your couch to make it feel more like your truck? Because
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I have a steering wheel on my couch. Yeah.
Sure. Well, from a photography standpoint, what's your favorite place that you visited lately?
I would have to say Williams, Arizona, on our last trip. I mean, recently, that was a lot of fun. Jay Redfeather is a really great individual. He's a lot of fun. He just had some pictures on Facebook the other day. He was in Oatman, and his girlfriend was petting the little burros,
Oh,
and
nice.
it just brought back memories. It was really funny, and yeah, it's funny. It warms the heart to see, to make friends and have friends on Facebook now from all over the place, and they post pictures and they say, hey, are you coming back out this way? And stop by and hang out, and we'll have a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever. And it's kind of fun. So yeah, I would say that Williams is a pretty interesting place, and more so the people. I love going back and saying hi to the people that I've met in the past and made photographs of, and a lot of them, the photographs that I've made are their Facebook profile photos, and it's pretty cool.
That's cool. Well, what's next? What are you looking forward to visiting and shooting next?
Well, actually, I'm really looking forward to going cross country again. I like that. I mean, I might actually I might go across 70 this time and go kind of in the middle of this country and see what happens. Go through Colorado and out that way. Depends on the weather. I track the weather big time because you never know what you're going to run into, and I don't want to get stranded in any snowstorm. I mean, I've changed from my truck and everything else, but I mean, there is a certain amount of danger involved if you get stuck and the road stops and you get stuck in traffic. It doesn't matter what. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck, so I really don't want to do that. That'd drive me crazy. But I'm looking forward to Portland. Portland's going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be an interesting place to check out in the winter, as well as being able to do a springtime workshop.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that too, man. On one hand, I think it would be really cool to see it with snow, but then I don't want to get stuck there, and I'm torn.
Well, I will have my truck, so if the flights get canceled, I mean,
just drive me home.
That far, I'll drive you home. That's no sweat, man.
There you go. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Rick, and from your truck. That's hilarious. Where can listeners find out more about you online?
I would say Rick Gerrity on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, that's great because I post everything to Instagram, and then it goes to Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and it just goes all over the place. And it's just the world of LUMIX Micro Four Thirds on Facebook is a great place to kind of follow my adventures, because everything that I post on Instagram, if they don't have Instagram, can check me out on Facebook.
Cool.
And
I'll put all those links on the post.
Yeah.
And you can also find out about Rick's and my photo workshops at digitalphotoadventures.com. And Rick, thanks for being on the show, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you, Rob. I'll see you in Portland.
You bet. And if you like what you hear on your itinerary, please tell all your friends about it and stop by iTunes and leave us some positive feedback, because we'd love to hear from you. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.